Welcome to the 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Awards nominations. Let's go. Hello everyone and welcome. Welcome to the 5th Online Scotch Whisky Awards nominations. 4th of October, it was a slight delay to what was previously announced. There was an unavoidable clash and we had to postpone by a week or two. I hope that's okay. It does mean that we clash a little bit with the London Live Whisky Show. So there are going to be more than just a few of you who are going to be picking this up on the replay. If that's the case, welcome. I hope you're comfortable and I hope you've got something nice in the glass to watch along. Ralfy and I are going to share with you tonight 6 nominations across 9 categories. Very, very similar to the formula that you've seen in previous years. In fact, so similar that the tweaks that we've made to this year are probably not even going to be noticeable to anyone. We tried to bring in a bit more community inspiration at the front end this year. We tried to use the community to help us build the contributors and extend the collaboration format out to more and more contributors. We have been successful. Thank you for your support in achieving that. And we managed to bring over 100 actual participating contributors in 2025. Now, that's up from 80 in 2024. But what we found is that, as whiskey waxes and wanes, there's a natural churn of channels and websites and things like that. So it dropped down a little bit. With community support, you nominating for people that weren't currently involved, we were able to reach out, and we're now sitting about 113, 114. If you're interested in who the contributors are, head over to OSWA.co.uk, and the contributor page there now lists everyone. And I think it's unique in the Whiskyverse because it's now become like a portal, like just a single page that can get you connected with so many whiskey resources right across podcasts, YouTube, web, online retail, bricks and mortar retail, writers, everything. If you're involved in guiding whiskey, you can be involved in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. Tonight, the changes are absolutely minimal. We have a core set of contributors that get together and use community inspiration, use their own experience in order to put forward a list of nominations that is shared with all the contributors involved in order to whittle it down and refine it to the 6 that we share with you tonight. At the end of the show tonight, once we've shared all the nominations with you, that then goes live on a public vote. You head over to oswa.co.uk and you'll find links in order for you to be able to go and place a vote for each of the 9 categories yourself. When that vote closes on midnight, Sunday, October 19th, we'll know what the winners are for 2025. Before we get started, I'm going to reach out to my co-host tonight, my friend sitting somewhere in the Irish Sea, and that is Ralfy, looking comfortable as always. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Hello there, Roy. I have to say it's quite stormy in the Irish Sea at the moment. Not
Yes.
that we're noticing here in the Bothy, because these thick stone walls have endured the centuries of bad weather and Irish sea storms. So got my dram, got the fire on, and I'll show you the fire, because do you know what? Every Bothy needs a wee fire.
Fantastic.
So we're all ready to go.
Nice and toasty in the bothy. We've got stormy weather here as well. Let's hope it doesn't interfere with our connections and our data, right? Okay, as long as it's nice and stable. We're no strangers to technical errors and things, are we? Ralfie,
sometimes, Roy, technical errors do happen. It's not what happens, it's how we deal with them.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And I know exactly what you're referencing when you mentioned that last year's winners show as well. Fantastic. Let's keep our fingers crossed for none of that tonight. Yeah. We're in our 5th year now. It doesn't seem like 5 years, does it?
It doesn't seem like 5 years. But even, I was just thinking about this recently, even a year ago, Roy, the whiskey landscape was rather different to what it is now. So we've seen since the beginning of the Online Scotch Whisky Awards in 2020, at the beginning of pandemic lockdown, we've seen a huge change arise just literally in the last couple of years, and in particular in the last year. And it's really interesting to see the shift in awareness as to what are considered the good whiskies, the aspirational whiskies from our nominators, as to, you know, if you've got these in your shelf, any of these whiskies in your shelf, you really know your whiskey and you're getting a really good whiskey experience. So it's not just the winners of the OSWAs. It's worth highlighting that it's all the nominations in the Scotch Whisky Awards for every year has been a who's who or what's what directory of what really is the best that's bottled. And I think that next year is going to be rather different yet again, Roy, making some future predictions. There's an awful lot of change happening all at once, everywhere, here and there, and it's really quite exciting, actually. I wouldn't particularly be wanting to be running a distillery at the moment, actually, considering...
It's definitely tough times. We live in times of
flux, so a wee word at this stage that we're thinking of the distilleries and the businesses that, you know, many whiskey drinkers, they don't see too far behind the scenes. They don't realize all the energy bills to be paid, all the bureaucracy, all the visits from the authorities, the letters that distilleries get from protest groups or environmental groups, which they have to tactfully navigate and negotiate with. Running a distillery is, you know, anybody could make whiskey, but to make good whiskey in a commercial environment really is a challenge, and is a testament to the ability and the skills within the industry that we're getting the quality of what's available to us in the shops.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said there when you talk about, especially when you talk about quality as well, is that as I was putting these things together for the show tonight, each category you're faced with, almost you can imagine the bottles lined up there on a virtual shelf somewhere or something. Yeah. And you make a good point that if these were your bottles and if those were the bottles you had in that shelf, you would be sipping well. You would have very good whiskies to choose from all across the world. And you're right that all of these places, wherever they exist right now, are struggling a wee bit. It's not as easy as it was even 5 years ago. Absolutely. We hope that in some way we're here to help the consumers. We're here to help connect them with good quality. And by doing that, we also hope that we help the industry by celebrating those who are doing things very, very well. Yeah, they're making good quality products, making them accessible and making them a fair price as well. Yeah. We usually get close to that.
And the answer to what you're saying, Roy, is yes and yes. The Online Scotch Whisky Awards, along with the collective group of online commentators, is generally 95% positive. Now that's pretty good going for any industry when you see some of the other subject matters that are discussed and controversial online. So I think that the whole whiskey sphere is actually a very embracing, mild and supportive space for everybody.
I always love it to be, I always find it to be very inclusive, very welcoming and things like that.
Yeah.
But I like the way that everyone recognizes that and they all kind of work together to preserve that. They realize that they're part of that welcoming side of whiskey. It's very, very cool. Well, we've given people 10 minutes to get settled, to grab a dram and things like that. I think it's about time that we do our messenger service. I'll point out to everybody, and obviously I don't need to point out to Ralfy, we are the messengers here. These are not our choices. We went out to the community for inspiration this year. That generated a long list for every single category. We cleaned that up. We removed duplicates. We removed things that weren't in the right category and things like that. And we shared that with all the core contributors in order to give them some feedback from the community, what they were excited about. Ralph and I went through and we were able to pick out our favorites and things like that as well. And we put everything alongside to remind people what's been nominated in each of the years the OSWAs have been running. And we highlighted the winners for each of those years as well. Hopefully all of that feedback, all of that information that we prepared helped people put together their nominations for 2025. But at the end of the day, when it goes out to over 100 contributors for voting now, it's really they control who the 6 nominations that's going to appear for each of the categories.
It's democracy.
It's democracy. And you and I, we always have a wee smile at this stuff. We really do. But genuinely, every year, we've also been genuinely excited by some of the entries as well, Ralphie. And I think that that's the same this year as well. We hope to see some stability, some repeats from previous years. You don't throw everything out one year and refresh it the next year. Whiskey's a long-term thing. Building brands is a long-term thing. So we like to see that. But we love to see new and exciting things in there because at the end of the day, we're chasing flavour, new experiences. And that we hope that the OSWAs, despite the fact that it's an annual format, not a lot changes in a year in whiskey, you know, we hope that it can harness some of that excitement and some of that vibrance. Mm-hmm. Shall we see if we've managed it this year?
Let's go for it, Roy.
I'll tell you what we're going to do then, Ralphie. We're going to just kind of scroll through these. I'll explain the category for everyone. I'll hand over to you for the nominations, and we'll start category 1 through till 9 as we always do. Welcome everybody. We're now ready to share with you the nominations for 2025. The first category every year is one of the core focus points of the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, and that is value. And the category that we have to mark that talks about the best value in whiskey. This does not need to be Scotch, but it is from the perspective of the Scotch whisky community. What do we talk about when we talk about value? It's not the same as cheap. We're talking about fairly priced whiskies that offer great quality and help people take their first steps, yet still provide great value sipping for those experienced drinkers too. We don't put any guide on price. It's based on whatever you feel provides value wherever you are. With that said, Ralphie, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Roy. The nominations for the 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Awards in the category of Best Value Whisky are as follows. Ardnamurchan AD-Sherry Cask, 50% volume.
First time nominee.
Bunromach 10-year-old, 43% volume.
Last nominated in 2024.
Craigellachie 13-year-old, 46% ABV.
Second time nominee.
Glencadam 10-year-old, 46% ABV.
Third time nominee, but last nominated away back in 2022.
Signatory Vintage 100 Proof Series, 57.1% ABV.
First time nominee.
Thompson Brothers Mystery Malt 48.5% ABV.
First time nominee. There we have it. I have to say, it's quite interesting to see the price spread here from my perspective, Ralph. If we looked at this virtual shelf and these were the whiskies, would be very well looked after indeed, absolutely. But
Yep.
what's curious to me that there's a magical kind of retail sweet spot when it comes to price, and that would roughly be between about £35 and £65. And for the most part, we seem to be hitting that value theme with these 6 whiskies. Once more, I'm also struck by the ABV percentages here. There's only one in this value category that slips below the magical kind of malt ABV threshold of 46% ABV, the Benromac. But the rest of them are 46 and above. Interestingly, one of them has been a very, very interesting range to be exploring over recent times, and that's 100 proof, 57.1% ABV from the Signatory Vintage series. For the first time, I think, in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, though, and I'll pass over to you for comment on it, we have, in the right-hand side of this slide here, we have Signatory Vintage and Thompson Brothers. These are not individual bottles. These are ranges. These are specific series. That's quite an interesting dynamic. That's an interesting development, isn't it?
It is, Roy, because for the first time in the nominations in Best Value Whisky, we have 4 individual singular brands, the Ardnamurchan, Benroma, Craigellachie and Glencadam, which are all actually very recognisable now to the engaged whisky drinker. But then we have 2 bottles which are not individual. They are a fairly substantial series, particularly the Signatory. And they have come onto people's radar in such a way that they are being treated as value whisky collectives. So that the price right across the vintage 100 proof range, and of course the Thompson Brothers Mystery Malt series, which is very eclectic and diverse in what they're actually bottling at, a very reasonable price. These are 2 brands who are very much aware of the zeitgeist. Great German word, that. The zeitgeist of the moment, that as the whisky drinker gets more seasoned, more experienced and more engaged, they're more aware of the value of positive experimentation. And the bottlers who are light on their feet and brave with it are capitalizing on this. And here you have, because of the internet, because of social media, because of online activity, literally within about a year, space of a year or less, they're being recognized within the OSWAs.
They've obviously, there are brands here laid out in front of us that have made a significant impact, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Some of them in a remarkably short space of time, or in very recent times. Spot on, absolutely. Very interesting indeed. Shall we share the next 6?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, before we do that, do you have a favourite amongst those, Roy?
I have a couple of favourites for different reasons. I'm always a wee bit mindful, because I don't think for a second that anybody tuning in is going to be led by Roy's opinion, right? I don't think people are going to just follow whatever I kind of say about anything. But if I try to keep my comments a little bit more vanilla, it takes the discussion off the table. So absolutely. I do have, but I also have to admit that there is not a bottle on the screen that I don't have on the shelf. I'm very pleased with this lineup.
Look at you. Look at you. What bragging rights.
I know. I'm very pleased with it. I think that there's nothing there that you wouldn't be happy to pour for somebody and celebrate. Over the course of my whiskey journey, I've kind of changed. My palate has changed, and I've been shifting all over the place. But I think we've got a range of whiskies here that you could go back to at any time and find safe harbor and enjoyable pours. Likewise, so we've started off positively, I believe.
Yeah. Likewise, Roy, you're being very diplomatic. and so am I, because none of the whiskies being nominated in the OSWAs tonight for the next month is going to be reviewed in my channel, so as to declare complete impartiality, because I don't want to be influencing anybody's vote. And it's worth just highlighting that for everybody watching and everybody participating in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, it's your vote and your vote alone. Don't be swayed by others. Don't let the brand ambassadors text you offering you free stuff for a vote. I'm so cynical, Roy. You know what I'm like.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, even in the way that we've structured it, even if that was to happen, it would be very, very tough for it to get passed. Right? It's just
absolutely.
I think one of the things that I enjoy about the Online Scotch Whisky Awards is the sheer level of peer collaboration, of trust, of people just enjoying that it exists. So obviously wanting to do things to help it endure a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Okay, buddy. Let's see what we can do about our next category.
Here we go.
This one is best blended whiskey. I was about to say best blended Scotch whiskey, but it's open to any blended whiskey. When it comes to Scotch, this is by far the largest category. Some people say it accounts for up to 90% of the volume and the value, of the volume of Scotch whiskey sold around the world. Like I say, it's not Scotch. It can be any blended whiskey. And it's often said that a great blend can deliver an experience greater than the sum of its parts. Some of the most celebrated whiskies are blended whiskies, and this is their category. Let's see what we've come up with. Over to you, Ralphie.
Thank you, Roy. The nominations for the 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Awards in the category of Best Blended Whisky are as follows. Cadenhead's 7 Stars Blended Scotch, 46% ABV.
First time nominee.
Compass Box Nectarosity Blended Scotch, 46% ABV.
First time nominee.
Living Souls 99 and 1 Blended Scotch, 46.3% ABV.
First time nominee.
Maclean's Nose Blended Scotch Whisky, 46% ABV.
Third consecutive nomination.
Nika from the Barrel Blended Whisky, 51.4% ABV.
Last nominated and won back in 2022.
Thompson Brothers TB-BSW 6-year-old Blended Scotch, 46% ABV.
This is the third consecutive nomination for that one, and a trifecta candidate. If it wins it 3 years in a row, it automatically receives the trifecta award. Once more, Ralphie, I'm drawn to looking at those ABVs. We're looking at blended Scotch now. You know, if we talk about 90% of the volume and things like that, probably 90% of that volume is sold at 40%. That's not where we are here. These blends are higher in ABV, probably to preserve and protect that malt content. I noticed that a lot of the blends in front of us are very high malt content. So it's important that those ABVs are a wee bit higher to preserve that malt. 46 is the lowest ABV that we have, Ralphie. 46.3 and 51.4 as well.
Yeah.
People enjoy the extra quality, the mouthfeel, the texture, the grippiness, whatever you want to call it, that comes along with that higher ABV. Are you surprised? I think this is the first time we've not seen any lower ABV blends.
I'm not really too surprised, Roy, because I think these higher ABVs right across the nominations reflect awareness amongst the experienced whiskey drinker that the higher percentage of alcohol physically carries more flavor, more complexity of flavor, which is then delivered as the experience onto the palate, whether you're adding a drop of water or just drinking it neat. I think that I'm picking up on Living Souls, which I only became aware of for the first time this year, Roy,
Yeah.
when I was in a shop and I said the magic words, "What would you like to sell me?"
I know the
And
shop. I know the shop you're talking about.
yes.
And I think it was the same. It was the exact same for me. You know, when you see a name 99 and 1,
Yeah.
you don't realize that what they're actually talking about there is 99% malt and 1% grain. We're told through it's one of these happy accents out there. What's been really nice about this one is that when it first appeared like it would be a single batch, there's more and more batches being released of this. And at £55, the drinking, the quality is fabulous.
It is fabulous. And the Cadenhead's 7 stars. We know what to expect from a 5-star whiskey, say a Crawford's 5-star, which is a bit of an antiquity now. But I really like the Cadenhead's resurrecting that old style branding because it's really quite timeless. And another comment I'd like to make is that all these bottles, apart from the Nika and the Compass box, do not come in boxes. And I think that
It's interesting. Yep, it's interesting.
I think that it reflects the fact that people who actually drink whiskey with a passion are not interested in paying the premiums for fancy designer packaging. People are not interested. In fact, there's a new trend happening, Roy. I don't know if we it's just kind of kicking off now, that when people are buying whiskey, they actually ask the seller to return the boxes to the producer to be reused for someone else. And it's a really, really clever way of saying, ditch the extra £3 or £4 or £5 that you could be charging us for fancy packaging because we only recycle it under B for bin.
Tissue's the new box.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I even when I'm quite happy to have a cardboard sleeve when there's more information that can be put on it and things like that. I suppose that's quite easy to recycle, but the first thing I do is toss it out for me. It's not important to me. I think despite your points about saving a wee bit of money, I think you are spot on your comments there. But once more, look at the prices here. That retail sweet spot has been hit on every single one of these.
Yes.
And you could argue that McLean's Nose is even outperforming that alongside the Thompson brothers. It's going to be interesting to see how people interact with these things. But I think once more, that's a handsome looking shelf of blended whiskies right there, Ralfie.
It's a handsome looking shelf of very varied whiskies, which proactively connect with us. Hence the reason they've been nominated. They catch our attention, they catch our eye. And on top of that, there is virtually zero marketing budget or consultants involved or high-performing, high-rewarding professionals to go out there and actually sell it through legacy media adverts. Things are changing so fast, Roy. It is just where we're sitting. I'm in the Bothy, you're in the Roy sphere, and in the V pub, and we've got the ringside tickets, as have the people watching this show this evening, who are getting the absolute cutting edge of online opinion.
Let's hope so. That's the goal. We'll do our best. Ready for category 3?
Yes.
Let's go. Category 3 is keeping up in the blend theme, but where category 2 talks about blended whiskey, we're here only speaking about malts. So it's only blended malts. I think this, for me, has been some of the most interesting spaces for whiskey developments in the last few years.
Yeah.
Where blended whiskies use different grains, these only use different malts. It's a fast-growing category, and some of the most interesting and attainable releases in recent times have been blended malts. This is their category. Take it away, Ralphie.
The nominations for the 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Awards in the category of Best Blended Malt are as follows. Campbellton Loch Blended Malt, 46% ABV.
Fourth consecutive nomination, and this year a trifecta candidate.
Compass Box Crimson Casks Blended Malt, 46% ABV.
First time nominee.
North Star Campbelltown Connections Blended Malt, 50.7% ABV.
Did you skip a line?
Yes, I have. First blooper.
That's okay.
Guilty. Right, okay, folks. Ralphie's done the first blooper of the show. It's in record. I'm going to have to go back a bit. Ignore what I said. I'll come to it shortly. The next one is Compass Box Orchard House Blended Malt at 46% ABV.
Yeah. And this is its fourth consecutive nomination since, and it was a winner back in 2022. And of course,
Yes.
The cat's out the bag for the fourth one.
Yeah, but go for it, Roy. Go for it. I'm now going to use my soda spoon as a moving marker so I don't skip a line.
That's right.
Right.
Check them off as you go. This is an interesting one, and it's a first time nominee.
Yes. Old Perth Palo Cortado Cask Blended Malt, 55.8% ABV.
First time nominee.
Thompson Brothers Sutherland Blended Malt, 48.5% ABV.
First time nominee.
There we go. We got there, Roy. Nobody noticed, by the way. Nobody noticed.
I know. I would have been happy just to kind of slide past it, but I realised that the animations come up in that order, so there was no way around it. Fascinating to me. We've got 3 Compass Boxes now. We've got the Nectarosity in the previous category, 2 Compass Boxes here. One's a new one, one's a staple of the OSWAs, we would have to say. Super popular. We hear that maybe the Orchard House is coming to an end. I'm not sure if that's true. So please take that with a pinch of salt. It's an anecdote right now. The Campbelltown Loch we're very, very familiar with. It's been an absolute staple of this category. And in fact, as I've already mentioned, it's won twice. If it wins again this year, it's also up for a trifecta.
Yep.
We've got some really, really interesting whiskies, and higher end one there with the Thompson Brothers Sutherland 5-year-old. That's them taking Dornoch liquid, very, very precious stuff, and blending it with other local malts close to them. And the Old Perth Cortado, 55.8% ABV, Palo Cortado, sorry. It's a cracker. It's a blended malt Scotch whisky, and they're using a Palo Cortado cask finishing for that particular release. We have seen Old Perth before in the OSWAs, but it's the first time we've seen this series.
Yeah.
Again, I have to say, I have to comment on the ABVs here, and I have to comment on the prices as well. One of them is pricier than the others just because of how precious it is. You'd have a hard time getting a hold of the Sutherland 5-year-old easily. I have to be honest about that. I chased it for a long time before I got a bottle. But the other ones, look at the price point. That retail sweet spot has been hit for every single one of them. I think that these are the whiskies that's resonating with the community at large, Ralphie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there is a price variance there. They're not all super value, but we're looking at the quality here. And what I'm looking at as I examine the nominations is that every single one of the nominations is from an independent bottler. There's no official distillery releases in the category of blended malt.
That is an interesting observation, and you would be absolutely right. You could suggest that potentially Campbellton Loch from Janie Mitchell, Kilkerran and Springbank, perhaps. But you're absolutely right. And they've also got Cadenheads there. Compass Box independent, North Star's independent. Old Perth is obviously from, it's the boys at Carnmore, isn't it? It's Morrison Mackay. and then obviously Thompson Brothers with the Sutherland. That is an interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
But I do look at these things, and they are quite polished products. They look like nice things. You know, it's not like a lab sample. It's not like a pretty plain white, easy going independent label. I think there's been some effort put into all of these things. And again, once more, there's nothing on that shelf that I would be ashamed to pour for anyone.
Mm-hmm. You're right when you say, Roy, that Campbellton Loch is part of Springbank, right? But Springbank, in my mind, Springbank and Cadenheads, although they're separate businesses technically, are inseparable as part of the identity of
J&A Mitchell, yeah.
J&A Mitchell, absolutely. And the Thompson Brothers, is that bottling from their independent side or from their single malt whiskey distillery side? That's from the independent side. We're pretty sure about that. So I would categorize all of these as essentially independent bottlings. Sure, the Campbellton Loch is kind of crossing boundaries a little bit, but you don't look at Campbellton Loch and immediately, apart from the shape of the bottle, immediately think that's Springbank, although the chances that Springbank's in it are probably quite high.
Well, we hope so. It does say Springbank on the label. Sorry, it doesn't say Springbank on the label. It does say Springbank on the bottle. It's got it's using the Springbank, a standard bottle. But it's interesting that you say that a lot of these are the products of creative thinking, of independent thought, and mixing different malts from different organizations and different companies. And it's terrific to see. We've got a wee step change now, Ralfie. We move on from blends and blended malts, and we move into anything that is not malt whiskey. So when we talk about this is this idea that, okay, we're Scotch lovers, and that means that we tend to spend the majority of our time in the realm of malt. But there's a hell of a lot of other whiskies out there made from other grains, and this is the category to celebrate those whiskies in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. How do we describe it? Well, it's clumsy, but we call it the best non-malt. So we're talking about more than one type of whiskey, more than one type of grain. The category is open to all grain types, excluding malt, of course. Obviously, there could be malt in the mix. That doesn't exclude it, but excluding 100% malt. So we're talking about rye, corn, wheat, anything else that can be included. Open up many other styles of whiskey. Ralfie, share with us what our contributors have brought to us for 2025.
The nominations for the 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Awards in the category of Best Non-Malt Whisky are as follows. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Kentucky Straight Bourbon, 60% plus ABV.
Fourth consecutive nomination.
Jack Daniel's Single Barrel, Barrel Strength, 60% plus ABV.
Third consecutive nomination.
Millstone 100 Rye Dutch Single Rye Whiskey, 50% ABV.
Second consecutive nomination.
Old Forester 1920 Prohibition Style Kentucky Straight Bourbon, 57.5% ABV.
First time nominee.
Powers Johns Lane 12-year-old single pot still Irish whiskey, 46% ABV.
Second consecutive nomination.
Stag Kentucky Straight Bourbon, 60% plus ABV.
Wow. What strikes me is we've got Stag as a brand new entry here. This is a first time nominee for Stag. Old Forester, it's a first time nominee in this category, but we have seen Old Forester 1920 Prohibition style put forward in the World Whisky category in the past, so it is familiar to us in the OSWAs. But the other whiskies that we have here, second, third, fourth time nominations. It suggests to me that we are reaching the Scotch whisky loving community, the single malt pursuers, that type of community, because I think when we ask them to go outside of their comfort zone, or outside of that envelope, I think that the suggestions can be a little bit predictable. And we tend to go for the things that are widely distributed, mass market products that people can get their hands on. And yet, I say all that, that's not to throw shade on any of these fantastic, flavor-forward, knockout whiskies. But I wonder just how promiscuous our Scotch whisky loving community actually is when we do see so much repetition in this specific category, Ralphie.
Right. Well, obviously, I'm not particularly promiscuous myself, because I do not have a single bottle of any of the nominations on that list.
Yet.
Communicative silence. No, I can't. I was about to pick one out and say if I was going to buy one, it would be, but I can't even say that, Roy. So I would say that you've got a good variety there of American whiskies, Dutch whiskey, and Irish whiskey.
Yep.
And wonderful.
Yeah, we've got four out of the 6 are American. We've got basically 4 bourbons, and we've got a single pot still Irish, and we've got a Dutch whiskey. But of course, there's another category of world whiskey as well, where I suppose all of these are also applicable.
Yes.
Still, that's our picks for 2025, and I think with your permission, I think we'll go on. And this is always an exciting category to come up if we talk about the best distillery. Now, what was interesting is that we had Springbank win 3 consecutive years. So in 2024, they were awarded a trifecta. Have they been put forward in 2025, Ralphie? Please share the secrets.
You already know, Roy, but I tell you what, you're a good actor. We're keeping the continuity going here. This is live.
That's
absolutely
right.
Live. The nominations for the 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Awards in the category of Best Distillery are as follows. Ardnamurchan Distillery, West Highlands.
Oops. This is the 4th consecutive nomination for them, and they won this in 2024 when Springbank was under trifecta.
Benromach Distillery, Speyside.
3rd consecutive nomination.
Bruichladdich Distillery, Islay.
3rd appearance, last nominated back in 2023.
Glasgow Distillery, Lowland.
1st time nominee.
Loch Lomond Distillery, Southern Highlands.
4th consecutive nomination.
Springbank Distillery, Campbelltown.
So there you go.
The who's who.
Trifecta winner in 2024, of course, as I've just explained. So I think that there would have been surprise, potentially outcry, if Springbank hadn't been nominated. But I think when we get to see behind the scenes, Ralphie, and see the subtle changes that happen amongst opinion and commentary and things out there, it was interesting to see the dynamics play out, because of course we get to see as the votes as they come in, and we get to see the thing moving and changing and the positions being traded as everybody races towards the top 6 spots. So it's certainly going to be interesting to see not only what we share in terms of the winners and the winners ceremony on the 1st of November, but also going to be interesting to see how the people's choice has been affected, if at all. Remember that we also harvest, and anybody that's going to get involved in voting for the OSWAs this year, please take a moment to enter your favourites into the people's choice section as well. And that's nothing to do with the awards, it's nothing to do with the winners, but from that public opinion, we build a chart. We build the top 10 chart, and as long as that becomes manageable to do, we'll continue to do that, because it's fascinating to measure the changing times in whiskey in that way. Any surprises here for you, Ralfie?
No, Roy. I think that what I'm looking at here is you've got a jousting going on now. Springbank and Ardnamurchan, they both enjoy very high status in different ways. And I'm curious to see, will Springbank, with its traditional reputation, hold on to people's attention? Or will Ardnamurchan, with their series of exciting bottlings recently, and the fact that it's still a fresh distillery, it's only just 10 years old, and yet already getting a big impact in the whiskey scene. And then coupled with that, you've got the appearance for the first time of Glasgow Distillery, who I think are there because they have really pushed the boat out in turning up at whiskey festivals and very successfully networking with their potential customers. They also are very proactive with whiskey clubs. So they're a very good example of a distillery that's really going out there with individuals to connect. Loch Lomond is different. Loch Lomond is it's got a huge back catalogue of stock, but what I see is an upgrade in ambitions, a new regime that have swept out some of the dust and bringing out some exciting bottlings for a bigger distillery. And Loch Lomond is a big distillery. What's interesting is that it does everything in-house, Roy. It's got what it calls its special stills. We call them Lomond stills. They say they're not Lomond stills, but we know they're Lomond stills. But that's the way it goes. So they have blends, they have single malts, they have a tremendous variety of single malts. And the people that really in the know are looking for the independent bottlings of Loch Lomond at the moment, because they're really quite exciting and remarkably old school in style. Bruichladdich, the early 2000s, it was the darling of the whiskey scene after the millennium. I think its role and status has changed a lot, but it continues to make really good, solid whiskey. And I would particularly commend the Port Charlotte as very consistent as a standard 10-year-old. And Benromach, one of these distilleries, it could be the Springbank of the North, but it isn't quite, Roy. And I think that's down to the fact that there isn't an absolute clear objective to go full craft in the actual bottlings themselves. Yeah,
it's the age-old complaint about Benromach when we still enjoy the 10 and the 15, maybe even the 21 as well, but they're at 43%. It would be so easy for them just to take that extra step and go full natural. Of course, that said, they still become a favourite. They're still a regular here at the OSWAs. We love it. We love the contrast series and things like that. I love the way that you talked about evolution there. We see Ardnamurchan and Glasgow both past that 10-year milestone now. Glasgow is still, and for one final year, it's eligible to be nominated in the Best New Distillery category as well. But here we see it nominated in the Best Distillery. I think that's a huge accolade to them, and I think it says a lot about the personality that you talked about, the connection, the human connection that Glasgow are able to make. Loch Lomond are doing the talking through their products much more, but they've got fantastic people out there on the circuit as well, pouring for everybody. I think Bruichladdich, for me, it has reached a level of maturity now, since its renaissance post year 2000, of course, that we're starting to just trust, I would say, almost all of the releases that's coming out of Bruichladdich. It's not try before you buy anymore. And all of this means that we're not really speaking too much about Springbank, and I think that's a bit of a shame, because for decades upon decades upon decades, they've stuck to their guns, and they've done everything exactly the way that we would ask them to do so, and to not talk about them or to not celebrate it, I think, is always a wee bit frustrating to me, because if we need a torchbearer out there for Scotch whisky, they are an eligible torchbearer, I would say.
Agreed.
Good stuff, Ralfie. That's Best Distillery for this year. Six crackers, it's going to be a hard choice, but now we roll on to see who's made it through for the Best New distillery in 2025. I've missed the definition for best distillery. Hopefully nobody lost out from that. It's pretty clear and obvious, but the definition for new distillery is to celebrate the choice that we have more than ever before. There's so many new products coming from these new independent producers in this category. We highlight those founded in the last 10 years in recognition of their achievements. So they can reach 10 years old and they can be nominated in this category throughout their 10th year. After that, they go and fight, as Alex Bruce once famously said, in the big playground with the big boys. Ralfie, share with us the best new distilleries for 2025.
The nominations for the 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Awards in the category of Best New Distillery are as follows. Ardnahoe Distillery, Islay.
This is the second consecutive nomination.
Glasgow Distillery, Lowlands.
Third nomination, last nominated in 2024.
Holyrood Distillery, Lowlands.
First time nomination.
Lag Distillery, Islands.
Third consecutive nomination.
Lochlee Distillery, Lowlands.
Second consecutive nomination.
White Peak Distillery, Derbyshire.
First time nominee. Ralphie, I have to say, every time I have a bit of this is my heart sink category for me. And the reason it's my heart sink category is you've got so many new distilleries out there doing fantastic things. Think of all the distilleries out there in Fife, Lindores and Kingsbarns. And while they might have made an appearance in the OSWAs in the past, it's impossible for them to make it in every year. You always feel a little bit sorry about the distilleries that should be celebrated in this category, but it's only 6 can make it through. We can only highlight 6. Interestingly, this year, we've got a pretender from south of the border muscling in. But I don't know if you've noticed this. Glasgow, Lowlands, Holyrood, Lowlands, Lag, Lowlands, Lochlee, Lowlands. 4 out of 6 new distilleries nominated in this year are from the Lowlands region of Scotland. That is a renaissance.
Well, and it's, well, not quite, Roy, because Lag Distillery is in the Isle of Arran. It's an island distillery. It's
true, but they consider, because of the fault line that goes right through Scotland and goes right through the middle of Arran, they consider their distillery, and many observers consider the distillery to be functionally a lowland distillery. I see it's up to us how we want to interpret it, but for official descriptions and things like that, we go along with what the distillery themselves declare themselves to be, and that's currently a lowlands distillery.
Well,
I hear you.
Yeah, well, I don't accept that. Right. Lag Distillery has got water all around it, right?
Yeah.
And when people go to Arran, they call it an island. Now, if some fancy pants wants to describe an island distillery as lowland, then you're opening the can of worms here that a distillery in the middle of Speyside could describe itself as Highland. So
it does.
And that already happens, by the way. Macallan describes itself as Highland whiskey. So what we have is we've got regions which then get fudged. People are then being misled because they're being told there's categories and regional areas, and then it's all thrown up in the air. And I think this is a bit disingenuous and inconsistent within the industry. Moving on.
It wouldn't be the OSWAs without a wee mini rant from Ralphie. Thank you, fella. Thank you. I just wanted to point that out because I do think that it's interesting to see that word, the Lowlands, appearing 4 times in this nomination. It was only something that was apparent to me when I was putting this thing together. What we do have is an interesting thing. Ardnahoe second year in a row nominated here. They were out, they had the inaugural out last year, but this year they've got some core range products out there as well, and they've attracted a lot of attention. Glasgow, for the reasons that you've highlighted in the previous category, have managed to pull off that amazing trick like Ardnamurchan has done in the past to be nominated in both categories. And this is the last year that it's possible for those guys to do that. Well done to them. We've seen Holyrood Distillery appear, and that's on the back of them releasing 3 reasonably sized outturns now. Their Arrival came out, followed by the Embra, and then the Pitch. I would like to see a core range product. I would like to see an anchor from them to try and connect with what they're doing at Holyrood. It's really cool to see them getting a nomination this year. Lag, I love the spirit coming out of Lag. It's one of these distilleries that makes me excited about the future. That really robust, thick, heavy, oily style. At Lochlee, we just forget how fantastic a distillery Lochlee is when you talk about a distillery that can do everything itself. They put in a malt floor and a bottling plant, and that's it. They're looking after themselves for absolutely everything. And to see an English distillery make it into the best new distillery category is fascinating for me as well. I think that there's quite a few English distilleries that are worthy of such a feat, but White Peak, for me, is definitely one of them.
And it's worth commenting, Roy, that White Peak or Wireworks Distillery, White Peak Distillery at Wireworks, won the English Whisky Awards last year, the inaugural English Whisky Awards.
That's absolutely true. They absolutely did, and it was by quite a margin. And I think that helps explain that out of the 40 plus distilleries, malt distilleries producing not just malt in England, of course, south of the border, it explains why I think it's White Peak that's managed to break through the nominations in 2025. Really interesting stuff, good stuff, I would say, and positive stuff. Now move into a category that's close to a lot of our hearts, Ralfie. You've already commented on it, and that is the category of independent bottlers. So much of our collection, so much of our shelves are filled these days with things that wouldn't exist without the presence of independent bottling in Scotch whisky. We love it. It's fascinating. We're talking about the privilege that they bring, how we can enjoy our favourite types of spirits, not just through the official releases, but also from independent bottlers with a different take on things. We have to remember that they also give us access to distilleries that don't even have official bottlings. By focusing on quality at a fair price, we award the indies who have excelled. That's what we aim to do. Have we achieved it, Ralfie? Take it away.
Right. The nominations for the 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Awards in the category of Best Independent Bottler are as follows. Cadenheads.
3rd consecutive nomination.
Gordon and MacPhail.
5th consecutive nomination.
Living Souls.
1st time nominee.
Signatory Vintage.
Trifecta winner in 2024.
Thompson Brothers.
Category winner in 2024.
What Whiskey?
1st time nominee. Now, I don't know how to approach this or discuss this, but we do have a mix. We've got 2, 3, 4. No, it's okay. We've got 2, 3, or 4 juggernauts, big, well-known independent bottling brands, and we've got a couple of smaller brands in the mix as well. One of them notably smaller, I would have to say, and it would turn out that this particular brand has a fantastic support in continental Europe. Ooh. And it has done them no amount of positive service to break through into the OSWA nominations in 2025. When you talk about independent bottlers, Ralfie, what a spread to have in front of us right now, no pun intended.
Very diverse, actually, because you've got the oldest, Scotland's oldest independent bottler in Cadenheads, Scotland's largest independent bottler in Gordon and MacPhail in terms of stock that they hold. Yeah. And you have then Living Souls, which has come out of absolutely nowhere in less than a year. And they've come onto a lot of people's radars simply through word of mouth being amplified hugely in social media. Yeah. Because as a small independent bottler, they have a unique way of not just bottling their whiskey representing something exciting, challenging, at good value in terms of price, but also they have focused selling their whiskey through the independent high street walk-in shops, the specialist retailers, which are so important for Scotch whiskey, because that's where these businesses literally get their first step up and out there. And this also applies for what whiskey? Thompson Brothers, we're much more familiar. They're a guerrilla force of innovation and surprise. It's very brave independent bottler, Thompson Brothers. They're getting more experienced at risk taking and then taking good quality risks. And then you have Signatory Vintage, which surprised everyone right at the beginning of the year when whiskey sales are at their most sluggish, in coming away with a consistent and persistent, very good value range of high strength whiskies, naturally delivered. And sure, they varied a little bit, but generally, the people who are buying them know how to buy them, and they've been very well received. So we're seeing businesses there that are using different strategies.
Yes.
To grab our attention, and doing so very successfully.
It's incredible. It's an incredible spread, an incredible range. The really interesting thing is that Ralfy and I, as we are going through this process, after all the nominations and the votes and everything are in, we're able to go into the data. We're able to, double check that there are no duplicate logins, no duplication of votes, that type of thing. And we're able to look behind and see where the data is coming from. And I think that's when it's in the last couple of years that Ralfy and I has realized the value of the background data, because while we share with you the product of it, the data in the background is measuring all these micro changes that's happening in the background. And we see as the industry is changing, and it's been far too reliant on digital sharing, social media, influence type outlets. I think Ralfy and I are starting to see that word of mouth thing kicking back in again. Yeah. And we're seeing the companies that are able to get in front of their audience, their customer base, that type of thing, getting some traction when times are a bit tough. Would you agree, Ralfy?
I would agree. And I think that it's just worth mentioning how valuable whiskey festivals, all whiskey festivals, are now as acting as embassies for brands.
Yeah.
Because whilst generally sales of whiskey are down globally, and it's partly due to economic circumstances, the speed at which tickets are selling for whiskey festivals and the appearance now of new whiskey festivals, which are quickly gaining traction, is something that the industry has to take very seriously, and already to a certain degree does. I think there's still an opportunity for distilleries to make more of whiskey festivals by actually bottling a single cask exclusively for a whiskey festival. It's not rocket science. So that people can go to a whiskey festival, try the whiskey at the table, knowing that if they don't buy it on the day, they're never going to get a chance to try it again.
And I think that's a festival can be a wonderfully efficient way for you to get your hands on things like that you can try and before you buy that type of thing. But it's a remarkably efficient way for you to get around a lot of these producers, just tiny pour by tiny pour by tiny pour, and connect with the faces and the people behind the brands as well. I love my time at the festivals, and I know that a lot of you tuning in today will wish that they were living a wee bit close to these festivals. My only tip would be, if you are planning some international travel, that you have a look at the festival calendars and see if there's any you can find yourself a wee distraction as you travel. Ralfy, we've got 2 categories left to go.
We do.
World Whisky and, of course, Best Scotch. Shall we share?
Yes, we shall.
Okay.
The nominations.
Oh, no, let me just, sorry, I've just got to.
Thanks, Roy.
Obviously, World Whisky. It was me that made the mistake. Sorry, my friend. And I made a mistake last time. We're talking about not just Scotch. There's so much more available to us than Scotch. We may be the Scotch whisky community. Maybe Scotch whisky is our preference, our focus, that type of thing. But we hopefully are able to taste fantastic flavors from all over the world. World whisky is a very clumsy term. Ralfy and I are always apologizing for it, but we hope that people realize that we're speaking about other whiskies from a Scotch whisky perspective. We maybe need a non-Scotch or something like that. I don't know what else to call it, but this category celebrates the best the world has to offer. We're celebrating an unprecedented explosion in global whisky brands, and this category recognises the phenomenon with products from any country, anywhere, as long as it's defined as whisky, whether you spell it with or without an E. Over to you, Ralfy.
It's my turn now. The nominations for the 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Awards in the category of Best World Whisky are as follows. Chichibu Ichiro's Malt On the Way, 54.5% ABV.
First time nominee.
Circumstance Organic English Single Grain Series, 45% ABV.
First time nominee.
Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Kentucky Straight Bourbon, 60% plus ABV.
Last nominated back in 2021.
Spirit of Yorkshire Filey Bay IPA Cask English Single Malt Whisky, 46% ABV.
First time nominee.
White Peak Wireworks Bourbon Barrel English Single Malt Whisky, 53.4% ABV.
Second consecutive nomination.
Nika Yoichi Japanese Single Malt, 45% ABV.
Third consecutive nomination for Nika. World Whisky, fascinating to me. The obvious thing to talk about immediately is not the really, really high price of our first entry here, but the word English, Ralph. You mentioned it 3 times there. Circumstance down in Bristol, Spirit of Yorkshire with their Filey Bay, and Derbyshire's White Peak Wireworks as well, making a second, breaking through into the nominations for the second year in a row with a very specific bourbon cask core range from them. Muscling in alongside 2 Japanese and an American. Quite amazing, fascinating.
This is a category where there's definitely a shift in consciousness, Roy. And I find it fascinating that take Circumstance Distillery. They are doing some not just really, really interesting spirits and making them well, but the fact that they are very keenly priced for the strength, which is commendable. These whiskies are appearing at the big online retailers who tend to be the first to showcase these distilleries. And I think that Filey Bay has been with us for a few years. And it's interesting that it's not kind of disappearing. Bear in mind this, 45 distilleries now opened in England.
Yep.
So and White Peak is still holding our attention very successfully. Primarily, it's the quality of what they're doing. Elijah Craig, traditional, very recognizable, little bit in the steep side, but
for us, yeah.
With what's available to us. And you've got the Yoichi Japanese single malt, which is a non-age statement. I remember it as a 10-year-old and the superb 15-year-old version many years ago. And it's actually nice to see some relatively affordable Japanese high-end single malt whiskey there. You can see it by the price.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to me that the range, we have got 50% of these nominations are from a single country, which is fascinating to me. But I do see a huge swing in price, 45 all the way up to 275. But again, that OSWAS theme of ABV, that 45% on the circumstance, they do things by batch. So it's going to be 45 plus percent ABV.
Yeah.
It's going to be a various ABVs depending on the batch that they release. But in my experience, I agree with you, Ralphie, the value that these guys are bringing with these kind of experimental, you might even see wacky sometimes spirits that they're bringing out, but just in my experience, pretty delicious stuff too.
Yes.
Bookended by two very different Japanese, one that's very exclusive, difficult to get a hold of and sought after, and the other one, the Yuichi, Nika have found a way to bring something a bit more closer to mass market single malt, but to me, it's still quite pricey at 76, but that's a gorgeous pour as well. Super interesting. I love the fact that we've got a new half of these nominations are first time nominees as well. That's interesting as well. So we're getting variety in there too. The OSWAS is doing what it's one of its goals to do, is to bring interesting new experiences to the community as well. So that's job done here, I would suggest.
Something I'd like to comment too is back to the circumstance. They're being quite innovative in that the Scotch whisky is by law restricted to the use of barley grain for producing spirit. But in English whisky, as with Irish whisky, they're using other cereals. And one of the cereals that we hear very little about at the moment, but in my opinion, we're going to see that change in the future, is oats. And the reason for this is there's much more diversity of oat varieties than people realize. And also with technology now, you can actually ferment oats without them turning into porridge, which is a huge advantage. But they bring a marvelous creamy texture to a spirit. And I think that Circumstance are literally one of the first distilleries to do 100% oat spirit, which is now gone, by the way, because the experienced, curious people just kind of jumped on it up. In fact, I went to buy a bottle and I couldn't because it was sold out.
Well, I've got a wee bottle here, so when you come over for the winner ceremony, I'll share it with you, Ralphie.
Thank you. I'll give you to that, by the way.
And we can talk about it and celebrate it at that point, because the votes have all been cast, and there'll be no questions of us leading.
And rest assured, by the way, I'll be bringing you some lovely absinthe finished in a Jägermeister cask.
Yeah, bring your sleeping bag as well. You can have the couch for the night then. All right, terrific stuff. We've got our final category, and for me, it's the big one. This is the one that everybody's kind of waiting for, Ralphie. It's the best Scotch whisky. This is where we celebrate our community. It's where we celebrate the stuff that we love, and we define it as the cream of the crop. The Scotch whisky should be something that's attainable, offers value, and is something special. Here we celebrate our Scotch whisky community with the best the category has to offer. This is a lot on people's shoulders here. This is a lot to come up with when you're asked. It's almost like trying to pick your favorite child or something like crazy like that. It's very difficult. But the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, we try to bring it. It's going to be interesting this year, Ralphie, when you're ready.
The nominations for the 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Awards in the category of Best Scotch Whisky are as follows. Roy, that's your blooper, not my blooper. Take that back. Get off the screen, you. You're getting tired and emotional.
A nervous trigger finger.
Right. Okay. Just leave it there. Is there any point in me even reading it out now?
Yes. For the people who are listening podcast style, please do. Indulge me and I apologize.
Right. So for the people listening podcast style, Roy I'm just grassing him up here. He's gone and posted the first image of Bruichladdich 18-year-old redefine Islay single malt Scotch whisky at 50% ABV.
And that is a first-time nominee.
Craigellachie 17-year-old Speyside single malt Scotch, 46% ABV.
First time nominee.
Deanston 18-year-old Highland single malt, 46.3% ABV.
First time nominee.
Glen Scotia 15-year-old Campbellton single malt, 46% ABV.
First time nominee.
Springbank 12-year-old cask strength Campbellton single malt, 50% plus ABV.
First time nominee.
Springbank 18-year-old Campbellton single malt, 46% ABV.
First time nominee. Wow, we talk about a virtual shelf, Ralphie. If I walked into the bothy and these are the 6 bottles that you have up on the shelf, these are the ones that you're offering to pour for me, I don't think you're going to get rid of me very quickly.
Right, I think just... Roy, I could do a wee bit better than that, actually. A push. But that is what's available today in the shops. Affordable retail prices for an excellent experience. That is a fantastic lineup. It's all very well me showboating because I've still got a bottle of Brora squirreled somewhere in the back of the bothy, but that's about the only way you can beat this lineup, is to have some of these great old vintagey yesteryear whiskies. And
I think that's a good point. If I did travel to the bothy, we would see some things, some gems from the past, that type of thing. But what we've got here is a lineup. Interestingly, this is maybe the only category in the entire OSWAs that every single one has an age statement, and it's considerable age statements as well. I mean, the youngest whiskey there is a 12-year-old Springbank, 15 on the Glen Scotia, then a 17-year-old Craigellachie, and the other 3 all 18 years old.
So they're all 18 years old and younger, so people aren't being overly pressured to believe that older whiskey is necessarily better whiskey, and therefore the additional premium pricing is worth it. So you've got smart, self-taught, palate-confident selection here, Roy, of younger, superb quality whiskies from right across the spectrum: Speyside, Highland, Islay, Campbellton. A good weighting from Campbellton. Very good weighting, yeah. I think we're going to see more distilleries in that area before too long.
Yes, it's funny that, isn't it? Well, I have to say it was, I don't think we've ever had anything not from Campbelltown in this section at the end, and you would expect that to be the case. But you're absolutely right. 3 of the 6 entries are from that region, that tiny region of only 3 distilleries currently, and 2 of them are from one single distillery. Yeah. I'm trying to think if that's ever happened in the Online Scotch Whisky Awards before. I don't think it has, and if it's going to happen, it's going to happen at Springbank. It's maybe going to force people to split their vote there. They're going to have to choose their favourite between those 2, I would suggest, if they're going to place a vote on a Springbank. But I think that when they're faced with these half-dozen whiskies, with these value versus kind of price, affordability, accessibility, of course, the OSWAs have to focus a little bit on accessibility, availability, and those types of things. But it doesn't. Springbank are still releasing product, for example. They're still putting it out there. It might be getting snapped up very, very quickly, but they're putting out as much as they possibly can. And we don't want to penalise any producer for success. So, of course, Springbank will never, ever be told that they can't participate in the OSWAs simply because their stuff is far too successful, right? So we do have a scenario that there must be enough of the contributors out there getting their hands on Springbank in order not only to put this forward for a nomination, but to back it up with an endorsement vote as well. These 2 made it through alongside its Campbelltown neighbour, a Highlander, as you say, a Speysider, and an Islay. So a good spread of the regions there. And I think in time, Lowlands will be up there too. Most of the stuff from the Lowlands are just still a wee bit youthful, but that's a fantastic spread and a fantastic virtual shelf.
And £600 gets you 6 banger malts, which
that's interesting.
which it basically gives you 5-star grade A experiences, and not a single one is chill filtered and with caramel colorant added.
That's absolutely true. Everything is 46% plus. We've got 46.3 there. We've got, obviously, in the Springbank cask strength, we've got various ABVs all over 50. And the Brookladdy's bottled at a fantastic 50%, a generous ABV as well. I have to say, I am pretty pleased. I'm pretty pleased. And to give everybody a summary of what we've achieved tonight, we managed to put together, out of the 54 slots that we have for nomination in every Online Scotch Whisky Awards, we managed to share with you tonight 25 brand new first-time nominees right across the categories. Every single category has got first-time nominees in there, and that's exactly what we want to try and achieve if we represent the community, if we try and reflect what the community is enjoying and drinking. They're going to have their staple favourites, things that stay popular every year, and then we're going to have things that appear new on our radar and get people excited. Ralfy, what would you recommend that people do now?
I would recommend that people don't hang about and place their votes.
Absolutely.
Get in there, because there's actually less time this year than the previous year. And one reason for that is we're just making the whole thing a little bit tighter so that people have less time to place votes and then change their mind and then go back and change their votes. And so people can have a good look at the nominations and say, right, I'm voting for that, and that, and that, and that in these categories. And of course, importantly, as you've mentioned, Roy, previously, there's no obligation to vote in every category. There's an opportunity to skip a category if you want to. And if that is your vote, that is a valid vote in itself.
Absolutely. We're going to keep this voting open until Sunday, October 19th. So you still have over 2 weeks. You have over a fortnight here. I know that some people like a bit more time because there's some here that they might want to try before they place their votes, and that's understandable. For each category this year, you have a single vote to place. And as Ralphie's already touched upon, you do have the ability to go back and edit. So the recommendation would be you've got a shorter amount of time this year, so that hopefully will focus people to vote, get in and get their vote done. And if you want to go back and edit it, if you do change your mind, you're absolutely welcome to do that. I would recommend that you do that. Where do you do this? You head over to oswa.co.uk. I think in the background, the superstars that have been supporting me are working away in the background, and Rob Halford is busy on oswa.co.uk making the pages live, linking through to the Google form that's already replaced, ready there to start harvesting votes now, and you can get participating in the 2025 Online Scotch Whisky Awards. The messengers of Ralfie and myself will be back here with you on the 1st, I think it's the 1st of November. Ralfie, am I speaking out of turn?
No, you're right. I will be joining you, weather permitting, as long as the storm's passed by then. I'll be joining you in the V pub and in your studio to sample a wee touch of the oat spirit that you've promised me, and I'm not going to let that one go. And I look forward to that because this is the 5th year of the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, and even with each year, there's a slight evolution, but it's bedding in very nicely. As time goes on, it becomes more important for a one-stop portal to what is the best and what is the consensus, the democratic global consensus as to the best whiskey that money can buy in terms of quality and often increasing availability. And if you can't quite see what you're looking for today, I'm sure you'll find it tomorrow, because successful distilleries produce more good quality whiskey.
Hear, hear. I think that's absolutely true. And I think that can only be 6 in each category. There's going to be a lot of potential nominations that have missed out this year. But what I would say, keep exploring, keep enjoying responsibly, keep the promiscuity up, And when you do find and discover things, come along and share it with us at the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. Ralfy, thank you for your support here tonight. Thanks to Chuck, thanks to the superstar Rob Halford in the background for helping us realise this and bringing it all together. A lot of data crunching going on in the background, a lot of outreach to lots and lots of other people spread all over the world. In fact, if you stay for the credit roll at the end, you'll see just how many there are this year. But Ralfy and I are here to bring it to you. We enjoy this. It's a privilege for us. And we look forward to sitting with you in the 1st of November to bring the winners to you. Please, wherever you enjoy whiskey, wherever you are, share this initiative. It becomes more and more potent and more valuable the more consensus that we can harvest. Ralfy?
Thank you, Roy, for the blooper, because that's one each now. So it doesn't look quite so bad for me.
We'll call it quits tonight, Ralfy.
Call it quits tonight.
I'll see you all in November. Thanks to everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Slán. Cheers.